Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes are sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions and lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. There's a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculousness that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes are sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hello. Hello, my friends. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Technical difficulties like crazy today. Is it a full moon? Is it a full moon? I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? And then Laura had tech issues, and we just, it's one of those days. Sometimes it happens with, it happens with the, thank you, full moon technology. I don't know what it is. But, on the tails or the heels of the great interview I had the other night with Bob Alessi and David Yannetti, which was so much fun. If you guys haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. I promised you that I would bring Laura Alessi to you. Laura is one of the brilliant daughters of Bob Alessi, Bobby Scissorhands, as I named him. And now everyone's using it, which I love. Laura and I connected before trial number 2. And I'll never forget it because I saw a woman sitting in the front row in court sometime in March. I don't remember exactly when it was. And I thought she was so taken aback. She's striking. And I said, oh my God, who is that gorgeous woman in the front row on the end? I think she was on the end. And somebody said, oh, that's Laura Alessi, Bob Alessi's daughter. And somehow somebody told her that I wanted to connect with her. And she wrote me an email and we've been corresponding ever since. And this is really awesome because now I have a chance to bring her to you to share her brilliance and her bright light with you. And she's been on Jimmy, aka Auntie Deb's show once or twice, I think. And we had a little tussle over who was going to get Laura on first, and he did it. So you can go back and watch those interviews too. But I thought it would be so interesting and just illuminating for you to be able to meet Laura too, because you see where Laura comes from. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions for her about her dad. And who knows what else we'll talk about. A million other things because we had a lot of stuff to talk about backstage. So without further ado, I bring to you the brilliant, the gorgeous Laura Alessi. Hi.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How does it feel to be thrown into the international spotlight? Your whole family, maybe. You tell us. Have you guys been thrown into this international spotlight that you didn't? What's it like? Were you expecting?
Well, it's interesting because it's not as if I have people coming up to me on the street and saying, "Oh my God, you're so and so's daughter." I just had somebody that I know text me today and just say, wait, your dad was the lawyer? Like, yeah. So there are a lot of people that still had no idea, and are still figuring it out. So even within my own circle of people, some people don't know. So it's more of the surprise comes from people wanting to hear from me and having a voice. Because on X, I came on to X because I got trolled during my court appearance that one time that I went to court. And on X, all of these people came out. They found, my online bio for training. They were saying that I look like a guy. They said I look plastic. They said all of these different things. And I was just observing from afar what people were saying, not really feeling like I needed to say anything. But then there was this one person in particular that on every post that was trolling me, she would make some sort of comment. And I'm somebody that I don't have a problem speaking up for myself. Um, and I just thought it's time for people to know that I'm a human and I can see what you're saying. And so I just wrote something not snarky per se, but something that just signaled, hey, I'm here. I can see what everybody is saying. And so that was my very first interaction on X. And then all of these people jumped to my defense and started following me. And so then I just did a post about something that I'm really passionate about, which is the Enneagram, because I can't talk about the case on, online or otherwise. There's, constraints. So I was like, all right, I'm going to use this platform for something to bring people together that are a part of this movement. And so I posted the link to the test, and tons of people took it. And I was just overwhelmed by the comments, and people were going back and forth with each other and having these epiphany moments of, oh, I now see why I really like you. We're the same personality type. We're thinking the same way. And so it's like, cool. And so it just developed into this following, and it's still going. And I just am like, wow, this isn't something that I ever really expected, ever, even let alone coming from this case. So it's been I know my mom and my dad have been going out together after the trial. My dad recently got pulled into a wedding party when he and my mom were shopping for candles. Yeah, yeah, there's a hotel that my mom likes to get candles from, and so I think my parents had dinner and they wanted to go there afterward. And the hotel is famous for hosting weddings, especially at this time of the year because it's by the beach. And all of these wedding guests came out and were talking to my dad. And my dad felt kind of bad because there's a wedding going on and a bride and a groom. And, people are leaving the reception to meet with him and talk to him. And, somebody then grabbed him and said, hey, come on in. And my dad was like, wait, can you go check with the bride and groom first to make sure that it's okay? Because I don't want to, take over the wedding. And, sure enough, the bride and groom were cool with it. And then my dad got pulled on the dance floor. And so bottom line is my mom is getting used to being in the spotlight because my dad walks around and people recognize him. But for me, I'm kind of in a weird bubble where some people know, some people don't. So
Yeah, I don't want you to, because we were talking about this backstage about how these people are on the internet are crazy. And it's something that I never knew either when I first
yeah,
started coming onto YouTube. I'm very vulnerable. I like to talk about
me
things
too.
that are of
Yeah.
interest to me. And once I started talking about the Karen Reed case, everything shifted. And that's when people came for me,
Yeah.
And I just, that's so interesting because they do attack looks. That's the one thing that they love to do. And it's mostly women, which I find so interesting, but also a lot of men too. And that's why I left, or I hate the cesspool of Twitter because people can hide behind a fake name, say whatever they
Mm-hmm.
want about you. There's no ramifications for their behavior. You can't delete the comments. It's like the Wild West. And it's
Yes.
disgusting. It's repulsive. And like, when did this happen? I don't know. I guess I was really naive. Like, I just didn't realize that this kind of stuff goes on. But to hear that you were like bullied like that, that just like hurts my soul. And so it's a bullying is a big problem. Internet bullying is a big problem.
Absolutely. Yes.
I was telling you that my oldest kids are your age and your sister's age, and then I also have younger kids, and it breaks my heart that this internet bullying thing is something that you guys had to grow up with because we didn't
Yeah.
have that. You had to call somebody on the actual phone, and you had to hope somebody else in your house wasn't on the phone to be able to get the phone to be able to call the other person on the phone, and if you wanted to bully somebody, you had to do it in person. And so I love that you want to do something good with your platform, and maybe we can talk about that moving forward.
Yeah. 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 The whole online bullying space, I think getting to the real root cause of it is what's causing people to say those things in the first place. What's not right within them? What is the wound within them that is compelling them to do this? And I feel there's a massive need for people to do more introspection as opposed to projection.
Right.
And that's just, I think, a worldwide problem and
Yeah.
part of a greater issue.
You
Yeah.
know who's starting to speak out with about that now is Monica Lewinsky, who is somebody I've always been fascinated with. Like she's one of these
Yeah.
women that I've always been fascinated with. Like she in the 90s was completely just the things that happened to Monica Lewinsky in the 90s, like they took her life from her. And now she has a new
Yeah.
podcast and she's getting out and she's interviewing a lot of women. And
Oh, wow.
she has a whole anti-bullying platform, which I love. Um, but yeah, we can talk about that going forward. So, I mean, I'm sure people in the chat want to know, like you can't say a lot about your family, and I don't blame you. I wouldn't ask you to. And I mean, I wouldn't even ask you where that wedding was unless it was in a place where the Karen Retrial was super popular. Like it must have been somewhere in the Massachusetts area because
Oh, yes. Yes. It was in the Massachusetts area. Yes.
outside of that, I don't get recognized, and I'm in New York and I don't get recognized ever. But when I go to Boston, I do. And
Oh, yeah.
so,
Totally. You're a celebrity here.
yeah, it became really, that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um,
Totally.
and I'm sorry about that because maybe it wasn't my fault that you got found on Twitter, was it? Because I did notice you sitting in the courtroom that day
No,
and I was like, oh
no.
my gosh, who is this striking woman sitting in the front row? You're just very magnetic.
Oh, thanks. I, yeah, I realized looking on camera, I looked pretty intense. I mean, I am a pretty intense person in general, but I'm very mindful of courtroom dress code and everything like that. But I also want to put my own twist on it and, wear something that I feel comfortable in. And apparently, what I felt comfortable in attracts attention. But I wasn't even planning on sitting in the front row. I was when I walked in the courtroom, I gave Karen's parents a hug. Introduced myself to people I hadn't met yet, which included Karen's parents, and I was just shuffling to the back row. And Nathan grabbed me and said, "No, come sit up front." I'm like, oh, okay. And I knew what the implications of that were. I knew I was going to be on camera. And one of the things that, people were trolling me about was how I kept looking over in the direction of the camera. They kept saying, "Oh, she knows she's on camera. She keeps looking at the camera." I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at who I later learned was Hank Brennan's friend, who's also an attorney, an older guy with white hair. He was
Oh
sitting, so
crap.
the camera was up here, and he was sitting right underneath the camera. And when my dad was putting on his argument, he was just shaking his head. He was mouthing things under his breath. And I just was looking at him like, are you kidding me right now, dude? At least be respectful. And so I just found that to be incredibly distracting. And so it clearly was distracting me. But yeah, so
I think that's Joe Krowski Sr. I think I know who you're
yes,
talking
yes,
about.
that's his name. I didn't remember his name off the top of my head, but yes, that's him.
He's like Hank Brennan's biggest cheerleader, and his
Mm-hmm.
son Joe Krowski Jr. represented Colin
On.
Albert
Yep.
at one point, and he's always on court TV. But I did hear that he was always sitting in the courtroom. That's interesting, though, that you're telling me he was sitting right by the cameraman or camera
Yes, it
person.
was. So it's where the jury was sitting this time around. I don't know where they were sitting the last time, probably in the same
Probably,
location.
yeah.
But if you're looking out from where I was sitting, the judge is right in front of me, and then to the right is the jury box. And so the jury box was completely empty, and then there was a second row behind the jury box, and then a third row. So in the third row was the camera guy, and then right underneath him was Joe Krowski Sr. And nobody else was sitting in that area because there was no other media. It was just whoever the camera person was for, I believe, Court TV, Law and Crime. Maybe they used the same person, but it was only those two people sitting in that area. So yeah.
And that was a pretrial hearing, right? I think it was like around March because I
Yes.
looked it back to see when we connected, and that was like around the first time we connected. And I didn't even notice, to be honest, what you were wearing. I had no idea what you were wearing. It wasn't about that. It was about just you're very what's the word? Fierce. You look fierce. Like you
Thanks.
don't take any shit, like and maybe a lot of that has to do with your dad and the way that you were raised.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so, without telling us too much about your parents, I know that they're both lawyers. Uh,
Yes,
and it feels to me like your father has a photographic memory. I don't know if
he
that's
does.
true or
No,
not, but
it is
tell us all
true.
about it.
Yeah, so yeah, he does have a photographic memory. Yeah, both my parents are lawyers. They met in law school. Um, my dad had his sights set on my mom, and my mom was like, yeah, whatever about that guy. And eventually he won her over. And yeah, they've been married, I think, for almost 40 years, I want to say. I'm not really good with math, but yeah, they're fantastic parents. They're both characters in their own right. As you know, my dad is very much a character. My
Mhm.
mom is a character in the sense that I've never met somebody that has more energy in my entire life
Oh,
than my mom. She
oh.
gets up early every day, drinks an entire pot of coffee. She gets 30,000 steps without even blinking. She loves moving. She loves, being outside. She's very energetic. She's very warm, very maternal, very upbeat, very bright. So, my dad is more reserved, even though he is very outgoing. There's a quality about him that's a bit more reserved than my mom. My mom is very touchy. She's very, she's very much a people person. And my dad is too in his own way, but he also equally loves just sitting and reading and doing the law. So yeah, I grew up with two characters for parents, both very bright. They both had this great synergy together where, you know, my dad was more of the disciplinarian, and my mom was more of like the caretaker. And yeah, she was a disciplinarian too, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I never
What
got
like the
away with
fun
anything.
parent?
With two parents for lawyers, I never got away with anything.
How who won an argument in the house with both parents being lawyers? I can't imagine being married to a lawyer because who would ever win any argument? Like
Yeah,
to argue for a living, you know?
well, I mean, you see my dad. Winning an argument against my dad is it's I think it's a very difficult thing to do. So yeah, I mean, both my parents. It was more with the argument component. It was me trying to win an argument against both of them. A lot of the time, of the two of my between my sister and me, uh, my sister was the easier kid. I was more of the rebel, and so, you know, I in order to keep me focused and on the straight and narrow, the internet cord was a thing. You plug the computer into the Ethernet, and wasn't allowed to have the internet cord when I was doing schoolwork. I wasn't allowed to be on the computer. So it first started out where I was allowed to have the internet cord when I was doing my homework. But it was usually my mom would be sneaking up to behind me to see if I was actually doing my work. And after enough times where I wasn't doing my work and I was, trying to flip to another window really quickly off of AIM, uh, then the internet cord got taken away. And then my whole quest was, let's try and find the internet cord. So I would scour the house, find the internet cord, and then I would plug it into the computer. It was this ongoing battle of me trying to get away with things. The internet cord is just a ready example on the top of my mind. Bottom line is I didn't really ever get away with anything. So
You're the oldest child. I'm also the oldest child, so I get the
yeah,
whole rebel thing. Like we have to break the parents in, the oldest, right?
yes,
You like
yes,
do everything and you break them in for the rest of them. And yeah, I could totally see that. Somebody's pointing out here that your dad's also a pharmacist and
yes.
tell us about
Hmm.
that. Wait, let me just see here. Thanks. Amy Smith says, Laura, wasn't your father a pharmacist as well? I mean, the brain power and dedication to everything he does is amazing. Great genes. What's your career path? She wants to know.
So, okay, so
Thanks, Amy.
my dad is, yes, my dad still carries around his pharmacist knowledge on hand at all times. So whenever it's allergy season or you have a cold, he has lined up exactly what you need to take and what order and what time. So I always recovered from being sick quite quickly, to my dismay. I never really spent much time home from school being sick with a cold or what have you, because my dad always had the solution. Um, so my career path. So I went to BU. I did a
Oh, you
dual
did.
degree in philosophy and communication with a public relations focus. I went into college thinking that I wanted to be a lawyer. Having both my
Right.
parents as lawyers, I have similar talents to both of them when it comes to, critical thinking, writing, public speaking. Those things I have an affinity with. but I soon figured out it's not what I wanted to do. It didn't really feel like my soul's calling. And so I came in with a bunch of college credits, so I had some leeway to just mess around with different things. I knew I wanted to take on a second major because just having a philosophy major, the marketability of that post graduation is tough if you're not going right into law school. For law school, my dad always says this, being a philosophy major teaches you how to think like a lawyer. It's not just the subject matter of existentialism, what's the meaning of life, what's moral and what's just, those are all useful, but when it comes to the law, it teaches you how to analyze texts, write succinctly. I had professors where I'd have to analyze an entire chapter of some ancient Greek text, and I'd have to do it in a single page, double spaced. So it really teaches you how to write and think in that way. But I also wanted to have a career, so I did the public relations focus, thinking that was what I wanted to do. But I also went in thinking I want to have something where there's a lot of reading and writing. And I thought journalism initially, but I met with an advisor in the School of Communications, and that advisor said, "Oh no, you want to do a PR focus. You're going to get actually more writing in PR than in journalism," which was interesting to me.
Mm.
So I did the PR focus. And I ended up doing a bunch of internships when I was a junior and a senior. And I started working at one of the places I interned at right out of college, right after I graduated. I think it was 3 days after I graduated, I started working. And I soon realized that I really didn't like PR. While I was an intern, I actually was doing more of, uh, like a second or third year, I think account executive was the term. Yeah, account executive. I was pitching media, I was on the phone with different reporters and doing all this cool stuff. And then right when I started working and they had hired me, they put me on administrative work for the most part, where I was boxing things, shipping things. I was spending time in a packaging room. I'm like, this is BS. And so then I got into marketing analytics. I went to another firm that was, like a global firm, and that was really cool to me because it was taking a look at data and patterns and analyzing it. And I really liked doing that. And the main account that I worked on was the US Army. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was the largest account in the firm. And it was myself and my boss. We led a team of 84 ER executives and advised them on, how to get recruits to social media posts, really cool stuff, but I was just working slave hours and making like barely enough to get by. And it wasn't really like I was able to have an impact in the way that I wanted to, because a lot of the things that would suggest, because it's a government agency, would be put under review for a year or so. And a lot of the times they'd say, oh, that's a little too out there for our liking. And the things that we would come up with wouldn't get used. So I ended up just saying, I don't want to do this. This is not really giving me what I would like to get out of my career. And so, parallel to that, I've always been in fitness. I started lifting when I was 12. My dad got me into it.
Oh,
And I just carried that through from high school into college. I had worked in high school as a wellness coach at my local YMCA and worked the gym floor and, showed members around the gym how to use equipment, etc. And so I knew that that was a passion of mine. And I was helping people while I was in school. I started doing bodybuilding competitions my senior year
oh,
of
wow.
college. Yeah. And so I knew that was just a passion of mine that never died. And so I got out of that marketing PR aspect of my life thinking, okay, I want to do something that's in a gym environment, but I want to also do something that's marketing analytics as well. So I was looking for an opportunity where I could do both. And so, of course, the universe just brings you, if you really put your intention out there, what you're looking for. And so I met somebody that owned a really high-end gym in Boston. It was a personal training studio. And, I wanted to work there. I really liked the business model. You had to sign an NDA when you went in there because there were a lot of high net worth, well-known people that were training in that facility. And so I met with him and I just printed out a whole business plan and just said, here's what I can do for you. I don't want to be paid. I know I'm kind of asking for you to give me a position here that you're not even hiring for. Let me show you what I can do. And if you like it, I'll come on and you can start paying me. And if not, no worries. And so for a month, he paid me in training. So he would train me. And, I did a whole slew of different things like fixed some of the way that he was doing billing, accounting, marketing, tracking trainer progress. I just kind of threw a whole bunch of stuff together. I did that for about a year. And then he got an idea in his mind that I would be a really good trainer. And so he said, I really think you would be good at this. And this was back in 2018. I'm like, nah, that's my hobby. I don't want to get involved with, I don't want to mix, what I love to do with my job. And so he started putting me in positions where I would have to train people because his business model was a client would work with multiple trainers because each trainer had a different specialty. And so he would say, so and so trainer isn't available to train such and such client. Can you just go ahead and do it? And I said, sure. So I started doing it and I really liked it because there's a certain creativity to it. And I'm a very creative person. And I was getting a lot of enjoyment out of that. And then I was also teaching a class for this 6-week challenge that he was doing. And at the end of that challenge, I had multiple people come up to me and say, you changed my life. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, so I can combine my hobby with my work and also have an impact and change people's lives. Like, sign me up, man. So I got into doing training that way and my job now that way. And shortly after I started doing that full time, I started my own business and I just went off on my own. And yeah, that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Wow. So yeah.
It's good to be the boss, right? It's good to be the boss.
It is good to be the boss, but at the end of the day, it's like you answer to yourself. There's nobody else to blame but you. Not that I really have anything to blame, but like I have, it is what you make of it. It's like you're the one that's putting in the work. So everything that you do is whatever your business looks like is a direct reflection of that effort. So it's great because I love freedom. I love the freedom to just do things the way I like to do them. There are some gyms out there like big box gyms like Equinox, Lifetime. I know Equinox for sure. I'm not sure about Lifetime. They tell trainers how to train. You have to follow certain programming protocols. You can only do certain types of exercises, and that's so stifling to me. I would never want to have that on
Right.
myself. So yeah.
Well, Cheech is here. Hi, Cheech. And
Hi,
Cheech wants
Cheech.
to know
She's great.
if you teach strength training.
Yeah, that is like the bread and butter of what I do. That's all I do in some way, shape, or form. I use a whole different slew of modalities. Like I got these things called steel clubs they look like clubs and they're weighted. And I have these things that's a steel mace, which is like a long bar with a ball at the end. I use bands, I use everything. So yeah, it's just really depends on the person, but just like a whole mix of different things. That's what I do.
And so you have your own facility. You don't like do
I rent
in-house
space. I
in-house.
rent space in a facility. I don't really use that facility as much anymore. The majority of what I do are house calls. So yeah, I go
Oh,
to people's homes, do training them if they have like a full gym or like part of their house that they've made a gym. I can train somebody with like a towel and a balloon. It's not it doesn't re- They don't really need a lot. I bring stuff, but yeah, the majority of what I do is like apartment building, gyms, and homes. So yeah.
oh, so cool. I was wondering because we know a lot about your father's regimen and
Yes.
his fitness and the fact that he's 67, which blows everyone's mind. And I'm like, he found
Yeah.
the fountain of youth, and I'll allow it. Like, that is inspirational. So I was wondering if he was always that way, and he got you into fitness, or if it was the other way around, you got him into fitness.
He's always been that way. Always. Ever since I was a kid. I remember when I was really, really young and he was still trying to make partner. He would be up at 4 a.m., go to the gym at 5:30, get his workout in, then go to work, come home. He was in a very stringent routine with that. And he's kept that his entire career. It was always making sure working out, as he said, I think on maybe Ian Runkle's podcast, maybe yours. He works out for behavioral health. He has this thing where he taught it to me at a very young age. There's a mind body connection,
Hmm.
and you have to honor that. And that's what fitness is about. It's yes, you want to look in the mirror and you want to feel strong and you want to see the product of all your hard work, but it really is the mental component. And so that's why a lot of people I've noticed, they get into training because they want to look a certain way. But what keeps them going is how they feel and how they feel when they work out. And so, yeah, that's he the to answer your question, yeah, he's always been into it. Really has never taken time off or let himself go in any capacity. And it's because the driving force is he does it for his mind, mental clarity, stress relief, all of that stuff.
He told us that he does not drink coffee or tea. And you just said your
I
mom
don't
drinks a
get
pot of
that.
coffee. I don't either because I have to drink coffee. But he also sleeps very little. And I didn't know if that was only when he's on trial. He said he sleeps like 2.5 hours a night, or if he never sleeps ever. Because I am a
So
sleeper. I love sleep. I
me
love
too.
sleep.
Oh, sleep. Here's
And
the funny
I
thing
need
about
a
that.
good
Yeah,
8. I need a good 8, a good hard 8 hours. Otherwise,
me
I'm a
too.
nasty, impatient. Like lack of sleep, I think makes people crazy. Not that your dad's crazy at all, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
noticed that if I don't like when I was up feeding babies all the time, interrupted sleep is the worst. If you have
Yes.
to wake up and feed a baby every 2 hours, or you have twins like I did, or 3 kids under 3, and you're always waking up in the middle of the night, it can make you crazy. So how does he do it?
That's a great question. I'm not a fan of it. I'll say that. I don't advise anybody to do that. I don't think it works for people. It somehow works for him. I mean, during this trial, yeah, I was not happy to hear when Nick Rocco, I think I heard Nick Rocco say on somebody's podcast that, yeah, Bob Alessi only gets on average 1.8 hours of sleep a night.
Wow.
And I was like, that does make me happy. But I understand. And he can somehow, as everyone saw during the trial, still function very well. But when he's not doing that type of work and doesn't feel like he has that type of pressure on him in terms of making sure that he has all of his bases covered for something that's very high stakes, I think he gets like 4 hours, 5 hours when he's not in those situations. But still, I just don't get how, like, when you have the opportunity to sleep, how you don't. But I think he also explained on somebody else's podcast, I get 1.4 times more done in a day than other people do. And, if I did give that time to sleep, I would be, regretting not having that time to do other stuff. So,
I imagine too that he's just so brilliant that he's always the wheels are always turning. Like he's
mhm,
always thinking, he's always thinking. And so that will give you a certain amount of energy to the point where you don't feel like you need a lot of sleep because you got to get on to the next thing. And based on the fact that he was cross-examining most of the experts, and he had to
yeah,
do direct of all of the experts and learn a lot of those subject matters, which is wild to me that he could retain that kind of knowledge. He's
yeah,
always preparing in his brain, which may fuel him. And
yes.
I can see
That
that.
mind is always going. That's for sure. And he does, it's crazy. I still don't understand to this day. So he doesn't have any sort of caffeine, no stimulants, no anything. It's just pure life force. I'm
Wow.
like, how do you do it? He's like, I don't know. God's just given me the ability to do this. So, like, yeah, I can't really think of another explanation, to be honest with you, because you're 67 years old. You've been in sixth gear for like 4 decades, and you just keep on going with really no breaks. So,
I mean, look, I'll allow it. Like he's inspirational. Like there's so many of us that are getting older and we're like, okay, now what do we do? Like he's
yeah,
still doing it. He's doing it.
yes, yeah. He loves what
Phil,
he does. That's the thing. I think the real thing that drives him and just allows him to do things that people are like, I don't understand how that guy does it, is he when he says that he loves what he does, I have never met somebody that loves what they do more than him. He was put on this earth to be a lawyer, and that is what he loved, and that is what really allows him to just bring that energy and enthusiasm for life, wherever he goes. So,
it's really a beautiful thing to see. Let me just address Phil DeCesar here, who says we'd love to have Laura on our Friday fitness feature with us on WPKZFM and AM 1280. So I don't know if we can make a connection here if you have any interest in that, but I think
yeah,
what's
why
your
not?
Twitter? What's your Twitter? Maybe he can send you a message
So
on
yeah,
Twitter.
yeah, that would be great. So my Twitter name is Alessinator. So it's my last name, Scisnator. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Thank you.
that's it's so interesting that you said, you kind of wanted to do philosophy. You grew up not in Massachusetts though, right? You grew up in New York somewhere?
Yep. Upstate New York, suburb of Albany. Yep.
And then you went to Boston for college. And did you fall in love with Boston? And are you still like in the area? Like if people want
Yeah,
to stay with
so
you?
I when I was 12 years old, I didn't drive. My class went on a field trip to visit a sister school in Newton, and we drove down Com Ave, and I was blown away by how beautiful it was. And I knew I wanted to go to school in Boston right when we were going down Com Ave. And then I saw BU's campus, which has, kind of a multiple blocks on Com Ave,
Beautiful.
and I thought, I need to go to BU. I don't want to just go to any school in Boston. It's going to be BU. So I knew from when I was 12 years old that that is the school that I wanted to go to, and that it was going to be in Boston because I just fell in love with the city.
Look at you making your dreams come true. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not a race, it fascinates me that some people are like, oh, I just wanted to be a lawyer since I was, 8 years old and I just lived the dream. And it wasn't like that for me. I wanted to be an
Yeah.
actor. I was going to be an actor. That's what I was going to do. And then I went to college. I went to Trinity College for 1 year in Hartford, and it was just not for me. It was not for
Yeah.
me. It was like,
Connecticut.
but it was also a very, very rich student body, like wealthy.
Hmm.
It was like every kid who got out of Choate or name another boarding
Oh
school,
man, yeah, all the boarding schools.
all
Yep.
got let out and went to Trinity. And so like I was not, a trust fund baby. So this was like, and there were no hippies. I was a deadhead. So after year one, I was like, I'm out of here. I got to go find some like my people. I got to go find my people.
Yeah.
And so I heard about, and this was, before the internet, you had to send away for a catalog for a college, and,
Oh
transfer was
wow.
like a whole thing. You couldn't. And so I found University of Colorado in Boulder, and people were like, oh yeah, my friends go there. They're deadheads too. And they love it. And everyone loves it. And I'm just like, I applied to two places to go transfer to. One was Boulder and one was University of Texas at Austin. I have no idea why, because I hate the humidity. But so I went to Boulder. I never even visited. My mother got on a plane with me. We went out there and I didn't want to leave. So senior year, I was like, what can I finagle to, kind of stay out here for a couple more years? And I was like, okay, maybe I'll go to law school. So like I decided my senior year of college to go to law school. Like, like applications were due. Everyone had their student body. I was like, April, I was like, yeah, I'll take the LSATs and apply and see what happens. And I mean, like you say, you manifest something and it works out for you. And I
Yeah.
got into like all the New York law schools were full, and I really didn't want to come back here anyway. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, do I really want to be in Brooklyn for 3 years while it's already gray here? Do I really want to be there while I'm studying? And so I applied to University of Denver. They waitlisted me. And my father kept saying, what do you mean they don't have a seat for you? Just tell them you'll bring your own chair. And I remember I got into,
What an answer.
my father was a lot like your father. Like he just ran the room. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he
Yeah.
just ran the room. Like he was the guy.
Yeah.
And I got into class. They let me in the day before classes started at DU. So it gave me another 3 years in Boulder. And I commuted from Boulder to Denver. But it was one of those things that because I already wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be able to use my skills. I wanted to be able
Yeah.
to perform, but I got to write my own script. And also they couldn't tell me I didn't get the part because I had a captive audience and a jury. And also they couldn't tell me like,
Wow.
you're
How
too this, you're not
poetic.
enough that, you're too this, you're not enough that. And also I was like, I don't want to be the pick me person. Like, oh, please, can I have a job? Can I have a job? I just want to do what I want to do. And now here I am on YouTube, which is another like wild, amazing, crazy story too, because you're never too old to pivot. Like you find
Amen.
your passion and you do your passion. And then after I sued the Catholic Church on behalf of, many, many abused children who were now men and women, because that scandal broke in 2002 in Boston. Spotlight, they made a
Yeah.
movie about it.
Yes. I saw
Um,
that movie. What a movie.
yeah. After that, it sucked the life out of me because New York was the most pedo-friendly state, let's say, and all the cases were thrown out on statute of limitations. Because if you could keep a kid quiet long enough, you would never go to jail, and there would
Jesus.
never be any
Yep.
ramifications. And I was just like, you know what, I got to pivot. I got to do something else. And so eventually here I am. But you're never too old to dream a new dream. And so it's so interesting that we look at your dad and David, and of course Alan and Liza and the entire dream team, as being, at least for your dad and David in their 60s, so inspirational. And
Yeah.
so, like you can keep on keeping on, you can keep doing it. You can be a lawyer
Yes.
as long as you want. There's no retirement age.
Yes.
You can just keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it was really heartening to watch my dad throughout this case because it's totally different from anything that he's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
All of the other cases that he's done have not been televised. They have not been streamed. I know he's maybe said to you or somebody else in an interview, he had no idea about this whole class of law tubers. He had no idea that there are people that were streaming trials, commentating on them. He had no idea about this whole subculture within YouTube. And so just to see him be able to come on and kind of enter the simulation, so to speak, has been really really great because he gets to bring his passion and his love for the law in a new environment at age 67. So that's been really awesome to see.
And it's more interactive. It's more
Yes.
you're interacting with the people. You're taking their questions. You're talking to the people who are obsessed with you. Like the people in the chat, there's over 6,000 people here obsessed. Like he became a fan favorite so quickly because his passion for what he does is so evident. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a wordsmith in my own way, but there are a lot of
Yeah.
times your dad would say things and I'm Googling the definition of some of the words. He's so likable. And like we know that the cases that he handles at the white shoe firm that he works for are very important cases. They're very high worth cases. They're very high dollar cases, but they're not in the public eye so much.
Yeah. Yes.
So what was that like for him and for you watching to see all of a sudden now your dad is on TV? Like, has he ever done a televised case before?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think he's ever done a televised case before. And so seeing him on there, it was because I had watched the first trial very closely, a lot more closely than I did the second trial, and there's a reason why. But the first trial, I was one of those people, it starts at 9, I had you go in, what I was watching your
Oh,
commentary, and yeah, so I was very engrossed in it. But once I started to see my dad on TV, it was kind of a reality folding moment where, okay, this case is starting to enter my reality, and in a way where my dad's involved, I'm seeing him on TV. It's kind of like, well, this is kind of weird because I was very into this case, and so and now I'm seeing my dad enter the simulation, and it's a phrase I like to use.
right.
And I had to I had to, cut back a bit on how tuned in I was to everything. So I wasn't sitting there start at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whenever the trial was starting on any given day. It was more of, okay, I would be on X, I would see what people were saying was of importance. And if something important came on, I would tune in. But I realized I had to kind of cut my diet of the trial down a little bit because it became way too intense to have that be something that I was focused on during the day. And then, another thing that I was doing during that time period was I was shuttling food to my dad twice a week, which
Right.
I mentioned on Jimmy's podcast, where I would go and drop the food off, either in between my clients or after I was done with work, and I would spend an hour or so with my dad talking to him and with what he could say, or he'd ask me what I thought. Anything that was just public knowledge is all that we talked about. My dad takes, as you can see, ethics and
Yeah.
all of that stuff incredibly seriously. So with the things that we would talk about would be my views and my perspective on the case. So it was kind of just the case was an all consuming thing for me and my family.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a lot. But once I was able to titrate how much I was doing of each thing, watching each thing, I was in a good place. But it still nonetheless was a lot to have you know somebody be on trial for such serious things, and not only that, know that they're innocent, and then have your father be a part of that defense. And it was just a true fight for justice and truth.
Yeah.
And so I felt the stakes were high. And like when that verdict was read, it was an out of body experience for me because, we had the false start verdict where,
Mhm.
we have a verdict, then we don't have a verdict. And I had just been in Tennessee for 6 days. And so verdict watch was going on when I was down there, and I had no idea if I was going to be back in time. And so I had taken a 6:40 flight from Knoxville, where I was, to Boston, got back around 9 something, and then was just watching the screen. So I had like, I was on working off of 3 hours of sleep. And then, so, I was already in, I need my sleep just like you need your sleep. I need a
Right.
good 8.5 hours. So mentally, I was in a bit more of uh, not volatile place, but whenever I don't get enough sleep, my emotions always feel a lot more intense than normal. So to
Yes.
be kind of taken for a ride a little bit with that false start verdict, I was a bit of a mess. And so my boyfriend was just sitting with me, and he just he knew what this moment meant to me. He had like his hand on my leg, and we're listening to the verdict. And when the foreman said not guilty on the first count, I was like, okay. And then there was that whole thing with the second count for the OUI charge where he's like not guilty, and then the clerk asked for clarification and then said guilty of OUI, and it's like, okay, I think that's going to be okay. There's not going to be jail time for that. And then when the manslaughter charge, the final one, the count three, they said not guilty. I'm getting chills right now thinking
Mm.
about it. Just the crowd, the
The
sound,
roar.
hearing people outside. I thought there was something wrong with the audio in the courtroom or whatever. Someone didn't have their Zoom muted or something.
Right,
When you're
right.
hearing all that, and it just I just couldn't believe it because there had been so many aspects of this case where things should have gone smoothly or they should have gone a certain way and they didn't. And so just to think that the verdict was read like that and it was over, I was just like waiting for the other shoe to drop in some way. But once it registered with me in my body that, wow, okay, this really is over, I just started bawling.
Too.
As
I
I know
know.
so many people did. It was just quite a day. And then afterwards, my mom, after the verdict was read, my mom called me and we were talking, and she said, yeah, your dad texted me and said that there's going to be a party tonight at Mastro's and we're invited. And so I took so much for me to just get myself going, to be able to go on no sleep to continue celebrating. But I'm glad that I did. But it was just a wild ride.
I was like a blubbering. I was like, I just couldn't help it. It was a very emotional thing, and hearing the roar of the crowd really did it. And then watching David just like wiping
Oh my
tears, and
God,
then
I
picking
love
up your
him.
dad, and then it was so emotional because I've been covering this case for at least, I mean, January of 2024. So it's been a year and a half of not single thread coverage completely, but definitely for the second trial. But I was so emotionally invested in this because for me, I'm a civil litigator. I've handled thousands of car accident cases, dog bite cases, and I've seen cover up at the highest level with the Catholic Church scandal. So
Yeah,
when people would say, "Oh, it can't happen," I'm like, "What do you mean it can't happen? Like I've seen it happen." Like the Catholic Church scandal covered up. How many people did it take to cover that up? The
yeah,
abuse of like hundreds and thousands of children over decades took a lot of people to cover that up. Like it can be done. And also, this man John O'Keefe had no injuries that lined up with being hit by a car. So he just wasn't hit by a car. And then the dog attack. And then, so it was just I was so emotionally invested in it. I just broke down. And Mark Betterow was with me, which was so awesome
mm,
because he was there with me last year when they declared the mistrial. And
wow,
it's been such a long fight, and she's finally free. Like finally, the jury got it, you know?
yes,
Um,
yes,
and your dad was such a great addition to that team because of his expertise with experts.
yes, yes.
And there were some really fun moments that your
Oh
dad,
yeah, so many.
tell me about your favorite fun moments.
Oh man. Oh, what are my favorite fun moments? I mean, the lore of Jessica Hyde. I was really excited for that. Jimmy, Auntie Deb, for those of you who don't know,
Love
he
Jimmy.
really, he really, he really set up the framework for me to really delight in my dad's cross examination of Jessica Hyde.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of content that Jimmy has done is just it's nothing that's what he did with all of the witnesses and impersonating them. It's this little clip of him as Jessica Hyde, and overlaid with that is my dad saying it's all about Miss Hyde. It's all about Miss Hyde, and it's just Jimmy with his hair wrap and just standing like this, and then doing his like it's just so Jimmy, the bottom line is really framed for me going into the cross examination of Jessica Hyde thinking there's going to be some really good moments here. And my dad talked about it where it was, a frenemies battle, who could be nicer, who could be more polite. And so it's just the entire cross of Jessica Hyde I thought was really fun to watch.
But I mean, the
The
point where she said, well, I think it was Brennan who was questioning her at the time, or was it your dad when she said, "May the fourth be with you"?
I have no idea who was.
So I'm like,
I think it must have been direct. I think it must have been
yeah,
direct because I didn't. One of the things that I tampered down this time around with the trial was I didn't really want to watch the direct testimony of really any of the prosecution's case, and I didn't really want to watch their cross examination either, unless people were saying that it's something that was really worth watching. So it had to have been direct for Jessica Hyde because I didn't watch that and I don't remember that coming up with my dad.
somebody asked her a date about something, like what date did this happen? And she said, "Oh, May the 4th." It's really easy because May the 4th be with you. And
Yeah.
I was like, is that like a Star Wars reference? Like, I didn't get it. I'm not a Star Wars person, but people in the chat were going wild. They thought it was crazy. And is it you didn't
It's
want to
so
watch?
inappropriate. There's so many things that happen, with certain aspects of this case that I understand, sometimes there may be it can be perceived as a moment of levity, but let's not forget, there's a woman on trial here for murdering a police officer in addition to, the manslaughter, leaving a scene, OUI, but there's a woman on trial here for murder.
Facing
It's not
life.
time to be cracking jokes, especially when you're a technical expert. I feel like that really is discrediting to you as an expert if you're going to be, cracking jokes like that. Not only that, but the example she was using to teach the jury. That I did see clips of that from her direct examination, or, there was a reference to, something about it's something you wouldn't want your spouse to know that you were looking at on your computer, like porn, and then she was using
Right.
pizza and burgers in a restaurant to explain things to try and teach the jury, and I thought that was really patronizing, and really didn't give credit to the intelligence of the jury, where you don't have to rely on pizza and burgers and restaurants and orders to explain, something technical. I think you can explain it if you're not a true expert. If you can't explain things in their simplest form and have
Right.
people understand them. So
Right.
anyway, I digress, but yeah, Jessica
No,
Hyde was definitely
Welcher too. Welcher made a joke too. And your dad was crossing him at the time when he said that Alexis could just shoot off into space. Like,
yes.
your dad was like, his reaction was priceless. Like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
You mean
that guy definitely pissed me off. Because I could see from how he was with my dad, he was trying to play head games with him. He wasn't trying to have a battle of the minds in the traditional sense on subject matter. He was trying to play head games with my dad.
Mhm.
What's your name, sir? Sorry, what's your full name? You know what his full name is. There was somebody on TikTok. I don't remember her name, but she's this beautiful curly haired woman, and she did this whole thing where she was talking about how Judd Welcher probably listened to some how to have power in a situation, and how to feel empowered, or change the power dynamics in your favor so that you go in feeling like you're the big tough guy and you make the person that's your opponent feel weaker. So she was like, it's very clear that this guy listened to something like that and thought it would be a good idea to try it in this setting because, he knew that it would be a battle of sorts. I just didn't really like Judd Welcher because he didn't try and beat my dad on the expertise, but more so the head games. You
Yeah,
know, he made a
it's
fool of
true.
himself.
I, yeah, he really did. I mean, really. I mean, that experiment with the blue paint was like a cross between like Nickelodeon, like when the people used to get slimed and like the Blue Man Group. Like, and they paid 400 grand for that. The taxpayers paid 400 grand for that ridiculous experiment. And he never even told us how the taillight broke. Never told us how the taillight broke. Never told us how John's arm was injured allegedly by the taillight.
He just leaned in. He didn't even stand. He did an experiment at 2 miles an hour when the car was actually traveling allegedly in reverse at 24 miles an hour. And when he did it at 2 miles an hour, he leaned in. He leaned in.
Yeah.
That's interfering with the experiment. I don't know this area, but to me, that just discredited everything altogether. And then he only did it one time. And it's like, see, look at the blue mark that I I created by actually leaning into the vehicle so that I would have the blue paint line up exactly where I wanted it to. It's just it's pseudoscience.
Somebody changed their username. A lot of people changed their usernames based on the trial that we're watching, and somebody changed it to Bobby Alessi's Slice and Dice. It was true. He, they don't teach you how to be a trial lawyer in law school, really. Like you have to really
Hmm.
watch good trial lawyers to become a good trial lawyer. And so I used to go sit in the courthouse and watch trials.
Yeah.
And because you couldn't watch them on TV back then. I'm ancient. But for like a lot of law students watch my channel, and watching your father and Alan Jackson and David Unetti and Liza Little, she didn't get a lot of FaceTime with
Yeah.
witnesses this trial, but watching them work is really a masterclass in what
Yes.
it takes to be a trial lawyer, and the way that your father was able to meticulously and with surgical precision get the expert witnesses to say what he wanted them to say. I mean,
Yeah.
and he had Ian Whiffen saying that John O'Keefe was in the house for all intents
Yeah.
and
And
purposes because
would you say your doubts are reasonable? Yeah, it's like he literally got him to say he had reasonable doubt.
he did. And he got Wiltshire to say, yeah, we don't know what happened. We have no idea how it happened. Nobody knows how it happened. We have no idea how fast the car was going. And all of that just really focused on the reasonable doubt. And it was just such a beautiful thing to watch. But also, first of all, there's no love lost for Hank Brennan in this chat. I found him to
No.
be incredibly disrespectful, mostly to female witnesses, like Dr. Russell. I found the way he treated Dr. Russell to be the gasp heard around the world when he asked her, "Do you have memory problems?" And she said, "It was and the way that your father was able to keep his cool with Hank Brennan in front of the jury, let's say, because when
Yeah.
Hank Brennan started attacking the ethics of the attorneys, and your dad got up there and he was all fired up for mistrial argument number one, mistrial argument number two, knowing how ethical your father is, I would think he's got a very tight moral code, right? And he's
Oh yeah.
ethical, and watching him become, and I can't really say enraged because he doesn't seem to be like a person who gets that way, but personally offended, because I was personally offended too, to see Brennan get up there and really outright lie about waving those papers around. Like, we had to get this from the feds. And they had been given, the papers were given to him by the defense team. It was all the ARCA stuff about hiding communications and all of this other BS. And I could see that your father was personally offended by this. Like, you do not attack an attorney's ethics, especially with bold-faced lies. That was
Exactly.
beyond.
It's playing dirty in the law in a way that's not even it's not even adhering to like it's just all lies. That's the thing. So the foundation of all of the claims that he was making weren't even f- honest. They weren't even
No,
true. So it was just based on fabricated statements or fabricated facts. That this was something that like you were saying that the feds that we had to get these documents from the feds. The defense wasn't being forthcoming and turning these over. That's not even true. And it's just, the thing that was really disheartening to me in all of this is that despite the fact that the defense was bringing along transcripts and all of these other documents that proved what was said, they weren't weighted in the manner that they should have been.
Yeah.
It's and so it was just it was a total disregard for the value of the truth in the legal system. And that was really disheartening to me to watch. And it wasn't really anything to do with the overarching dishonesty among prosecution witnesses in the case. Several of
Yeah.
them were not forthcoming and honest. Whatever, that obviously is a problem, but it wasn't something that really got under my skin. What really got under my skin were those instances of, the truth being there for everybody to see, and it's not regarded in the way that it should be. And it's a total gaslighting endeavor. And that was really disheartening to me, because it just made me think, well, then what good is this justice system that we have if the truth doesn't carry the weight that it should?
Right. And where were her grave concerns when so many other things were pointed out, like the hoodie fiasco? Somebody put in here that your father said something like he mourned for justice when that whole hoodie thing
Yes,
happened. And,
yes.
where were her grave concerns when Hank Brennan was caught in all kinds of lies? And where were her grave concerns? I mean, your father spoke so highly of his paralegal, Carol, or his assistant, I'm not sure
Carol, I
her title,
love Carol. Yes,
that they've been working together for over 30 years and that
yes.
she got like, I remember when he wanted to impeach Jessica Hyde with that Maryland case that was recent when she was found to be discredited in a Maryland court, that, he gave Carol an impossible task to get like a certified copy of the decision from a Maryland court.
Hmm.
And she had it to him within, I don't know how long, but it was minutes. It was like, and you can see the way he speaks about your mother, like how much he loves your mother. Like he has such kind things about her. To watch Brennan disrespect women, I think was personally offensive to your father, right? I'm
Oh yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah. Yes. And then I'm just gonna make sure my phone is plugged in the
Oh,
charger, because
sure.
it's yep. Need to click on technology today.
I know.
I wonder if there is a full moon.
I don't know, or maybe yeah, some sort of Mercury in retrograde or something.
Yeah, that I know is coming up at some point. Let me just slide this over to make sure that it stays plugged in.
There was master gaslighting going on. It's a new moon. Life on Makeup says it's a new moon. Oh, so is that good?
Oh,
Is that good for us?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Thanks, Carla, for gifting a membership. Does Laura know how Karen is doing? She's been in fight mode. I can only imagine the PTSD and how it will hit her hard. Thanks, J. Coop. I'm sure even if you did, you wouldn't talk about it. But if there's
Yeah,
anything that you'd like to say,
I'll have to pass on that one.
yeah, I'm hoping that she's taking the time just to, get her mind back to a normal space. I mean, the
Amen.
PTSD, she's been dealing with this for 3.5 years. She never had time to grieve for John.
No.
And she really was fighting every minute of every single day. She probably, I don't know if she slept less than your dad, but she was also a very integral part of the defense team. I know that. Nobody knew more about the case than Karen did. And when she says she was out there fighting for justice for John harder than anyone else was, she 100% was.
Yes.
To think that she was indicted, that her charges were upgraded to second-degree murder based on lies, based on what we now know are lies.
Exactly. Herein lies the problem. Yes.
Right? Because we found out that, Carrie Roberts lied to the grand jury when she said that she heard Karen say Google hypothermia to Jen McCabe. That was a lie.
Hmm.
When Jennifer McCabe outright said on the stand that she lied to the FBI. Oh, okay. So if you lie to the FBI, why wouldn't you lie to the guy who's buddies with your brother-in-law, who happens to be in law
Exactly.
enforcement? Like, how can we believe anything that was said? And so
Exactly.
the whole thing just outrages me. And thank God we're here on the other side of this, because the only way out is through. Um,
Amen.
right. And I hope that she takes whatever
Yes.
time she needs to
Me too.
relax and to rest and doesn't go out there and I don't know what they have planned, but Alan, I haven't seen much of Alan either. So I'm sure that when the time is right, they will get out and do what they need to do.
Yes, they
Whereas
will.
speaking out and getting maybe some more justice for Karen Reed, because I think there's more justice coming down. I think this is far from over. That's what I think.
I mean, I mean, given the fact that there was evidence that was proffered that was not allowed into the trial,
Right.
that I think was solid evidence supporting the defense theory of what had happened. And this is coming completely from me, my own
Mhm.
beliefs. My dad doesn't tell me anything. This is something that is just from my observations and just logic in general. All of that information out there, and you think that the FBI is just, or some other agency, I'm assuming the FBI is just going
Mhm.
to hear about that and know that it exists, or they probably already have a lot of the same things, probably more, and they're not
Right.
going to do something about it,
Mhm.
especially given the fact that this is of that John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer.
100%.
I think there's a lot of aspects of this case that the public does not know about, that goes beyond the Karen Reed trial. With the
Mhm.
players that are involved and certain other things that they may have been involved in that are illegal, and maybe some other illicit dealings that they were involved in, that I think are also in this web and could be slowing things down. I think it's probably a very complex situation to try and indict people on.
Agreed. Agreed. But I'm sure eventually, maybe there will be justice for John O'Keefe. I believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all the evidence they turned over during trial one.
Yes.
All of the group text messages. Like, if you think they're not still watching, they don't announce when they're done with an investigation. They just don't come out and say, "Okay, case closed. We're not doing anything." They can always
Yeah.
reopen it. Again, like you said, John O'Keefe, Boston police officer. They're not just going to let that go. John
No.
O'Keefe was not hit by a car, and thank God that part of it's over. But I think that there's going to be more to come.
And then in addition to that, I remember during a pretrial hearing for the first trial, and this was when the TUI documents were released and that both the defense and the
Mhm.
prosecution had gotten them, that Alan Jackson got up and said that a Quantico trained cell phone forensic expert that was hired by the part of the FBI, hired by the FBI, determined that the Google search occurred at 2:27 a.m.
Right.
Full stop.
Right.
End of discussion. Unfortunately, I think there were probably, parameters that did not allow that guy to be brought into the state trial.
Mhm.
However,
Right.
that's a fact that the FBI determined was true. And so we all can infer from there, like, if that's true, the 2:27 a.m. Google search is true, and the FBI determined that it's true. Well, you can take it from there, and you know,
Right.
what was Jen McCabe doing Googling that at 2:27 in the morning when Karen was at One Meadows? So
Right.
I think there definitely is more to come.
Really no innocent explanation for that, is there? Steve
None.
says, Steve says, enjoy hearing attorneys Alessi and Yannetti talk about their taste in music during your chat. Thank you for asking the question. Cool channel. Your dad loves the rap, he told everyone, and
The
people are
rap.
blown away by that. Blown away by
Yeah.
that. They love that for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's got a very diverse taste in music. I remember one time a couple years ago, I came home for Christmas, and one of his favorite things is his Sonos speakers. He has the Sonos portable speakers. He walks around the house with it. He loves music. And Travis Scott's song "Highest in the Room" came on, which is a rap song, and my dad starts singing along to it. And this is a song that just came out, and I'm just like, Dad, this is it's so embarrassing. I'm in like my late 20s, early 30s. I'm just like, Dad, this is so embarrassing. Stop that. And he loved the Lizzo song. Oh, what's it called? But it goes, "Why men great till they gotta be great." Yeah. And my dad said, "See, listen to this line. Isn't this a good line?" And he loved that song. Yeah, so he
Interesting.
likes the modern music. I mean, and then the Steely Dan. Steely Dan's easily one of my favorite bands.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then classical music when he's doing his work. A lot of people had guessed that that's what he listens to when he's working, and they are correct. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
classical.
Amy says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So
Amen.
true.
It is
And
the
if
truest statement ever.
and once you stop loving what you're doing, find your next passion. I've been so
Exactly.
passionate about this case for so long that now I'm like, okay, what do I want to do next? And I really want to take a step back and think about what I want to do next, because I don't want to do something
Yeah,
half-assed. I want to do something and cover something that I'm passionate about. I was trying
exactly.
to maybe make this the Innocence project of YouTube. There are so many people who are wrongfully persecuted out
That's a
there.
great idea.
Not
Yes.
everybody has the funds that Karen Reed had to be able to
Mm-hmm.
defend herself and get the dream team.
Yes.
And a lot of people need I mean, your background is in PR. A lot of people thought that we on the internet that were talking about the Karen Reed case were paid by some
It's
imaginary
wild to
fund.
me, man.
That it was a PR stunt, because I guess after that whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing, apparently astroturfing is a thing. I never heard that term until I covered that case for one day, and it was more vitriolic than Karen Reed. I'm like, I am never touching this case again. The
Yeah.
Baldoni Lively thing, but it's a real thing, I guess, in PR and celebrities. And no, nobody was paid.
Yeah,
We
of
were just
course.
out here.
Why would people watch an injustice happening and see all of the holes in an investigation, all of the dishonesty amongst witnesses? Why would they ever want to come on and talk about it and raise
Right.
awareness about it on their own? Why? It's assuming that the sense of justice people have is not innate within them, and that in order for them to speak out about it, there needs to be some financial incentive. I found that to be just ridiculous and makes no sense.
Wild, right? And when I started talking about it, it was not the popular thing to do. I got a lot of hate
That's
for
the
it, and
hardest
I don't
time to do
care.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted more people to know about it because Karen Reed could be any one of us, and that's a frightening thing. Sham Wow says, Laura, do you feel like you're more like your mom or your dad? We haven't met mom yet, but you seem a lot like your dad.
I'd say I'm more like my dad. Definitely. I mean, definitely more emotionally sensitive than my dad. My dad, I've said before, is very good at, okay, something is on fire over here, but I can put that in a box and put that away and focus on something else and not let one thing bleed into another. Me, I'm just a everything kind of bleeds into the thing is I'm very good at keeping more of a stoic demeanor, so you're not going to know that I have emotional turmoil going on beneath the surface, but I do. I'm very sensitive, whereas my dad, he can just like a computer, be like, I don't need to feel this right now, so I'm going to just put this aside because I need to be able to get X, Y, and Z done. I don't have that capacity.
It's compartmentalizing. I can't do it either. What's your sign?
I'm a Pisces.
Oh, I'm
Pisces, so water
Aquarius.
sign.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And what's
Yep.
your dad?
So
Wait, let me guess. Is he a Virgo?
he's a Leo.
Oh, my parents were both Leos too. And my sister. That's a tough crowd to be with when you're an Aquarius. And Pisces too. Pisces are very emotional.
Yeah.
I get it.
My mom's a Gemini, so
Interesting. I find astrology incredibly interesting. A lot of people don't believe in it, but I really, anytime
oh,
there's something
there's
going
something
wrong in
to
my
it.
life, that's when I start reading my horoscope again. I'm like, okay, what's going on with me?
It goes beyond the horoscope though. Like there's an app that I really like and it's called Time Passages. It's more of
Okay.
the hardcore astrology app, and it gets into the positioning of all of these different planets, and also all of these different aspects, like your Chiron, which is it's this point. I'm not even sure exactly what it is, but what it represents is, if you believe in past lives, or, this isn't the first time that you've been here on planet Earth, it's kind of the wound that you're coming into in this lifetime that you are meant to overcome. And so that's what that represents. Then you have your North Node, which is another aspect, and that is sort of what you are supposed to evolve into in this lifetime. So astrology, in more of the technical sense, I think is where it's really at, and I really think that's where the credibility is. It's the one thing that I get kind of annoyed with is, oh, that it's justifying people's bad behavior as a result of their astrological sign. So, oh,
Oh,
this person's just having a hissy fit and just lost their temper. Of course, that's okay. They're an Aries. I'm like,
oh,
that's where I think astrology gets discredited, is in situations like that.
right. Agreed. Yeah. And Monj says, cannot get enough of you, Miss Laura Alessi. Your stories you share about your life are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Workout equipment has changed since back in the day. I played rugby and we rolled tires up a hill. Love to your dad. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yes. The
Look at
old school
that.
stuff is still where it's at. I mean, there's still a lot to be gained after like doing tire pushes, tire rollings. That's full body.
Yeah.
It's cardio too, because it's just you're continuously doing it, and then you have to use your legs, your back, your legs to lift it up, and your back, and then you're pushing it with your chest, shoulders. It's a full body workout. So there's still so much value in the old school stuff.
Yeah, and
I
the
love
the,
old
the
school.
ropes. Um,
Yes.
Best gun losing detective wants to know, did Alessi do word of the day when you were young? Like a word of the day?
No, no, he didn't. I mean, uh, he I was a voracious reader right off the bat when I was a kid. I mean, I started reading young,
Like
really, really young. I had like a
what was your
special,
thing?
oof. I mean, I would go to the library in elementary school in the first grade, and I thought the bigger the book, the better the book was, and the more advanced I was. So I would just grab the biggest book out of the library all the time, and I'd walk out and I'd check it out in the library and would be like, "Ooh, wow, that's a big book," and be like, "Yeah, I know." I'm gonna sit and read it. So just reading like Robinson Crusoe, all of these random things. But anyway, I was encouraged to read a lot as a kid, and it was something that I really loved to do, and so I expanded my vocabulary that way. But my dad always has had a big vocabulary just because he reads a lot, and he has a whole story which I'll let him share of how he actually got the vocabulary that he did and what started that for him. But it's something that was passed down to him as a kid. There was a book that he read, and it
Oh,
really opened his mind to the beauty of having a vocabulary and how to expand it. So
yeah,
yeah.
and the eloquence of his speaking is
Hmm.
another art. ShamWow says, Laura, how does it make you feel when dad is so powerful in court? We love him.
I
How do
mean,
you
I've
feel
said
when
this
he's so
before. I've said this before. He's the same everywhere he goes. So I mean, he can't really tone it down, and so I that's the dad that I grew up with. He's an intense guy. Relaxation for him is, you know, working out, boxing. Sometimes he'll sit and he'll have a show that he watches here and there, but he really is just an intense person in general, always, and I'm just used to it. So there's not really a difference for me between courtroom dad and regular dad. It's just he's
yeah.
always that way, and it's just who he is. You get what you see.
Yeah, he's not a faker. Cheech says, I met
No.
your dad when the team and Karen came down to the pizza place to have lunch, and we were all eating and chatting. And my heart blew open when your dad asked Karen if she wanted cottage cheese.
Oh man, he's trying to spread the love with what was in the Yeti. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Would you
love
like
cottage
cottage
cheese.
cheese? I
I
can't eat
eat cottage
dairy or
cheese.
gluten. I wish I could, but yeah. So
Big
cottage
Hot,
cheese is something I miss out on.
Big Hot says, love your dad. He's a badass genius. Could listen to him all day. A lot of people feel that way. She says, being out front of the court is something I will never forget. Breathtaking.
I bet.
Laura, how much influence do the law tubers like Melanie and many others, plus the chats, have on the team? ShamWow wants to know. If you
Well,
know, I mean,
I think that they definitely did have an influence. I know my dad has said it that, he has a
team.
social media team within his firm that would compile different clips that they thought were useful or important and send it to him as a summary at the end of each day. And then from there, he familiarized himself with who's to watch on YouTube. And if he had time, he would listen, tune in. And I don't know about the comments because he hasn't spoken to that, but I do know from what he said that a lot of the legal commentary, when he had the time, it would guide him in maybe directions that he wasn't thinking about. And also, when you have all of the evidence in front of you and you're really enmeshed in the case, having an outside perspective from other attorneys is can be very useful because you can it's a different way of thinking. And then in addition to that, lay people commenting on X or Reddit or what have you about what they were finding important, that's almost a focus group in and of itself and a reflection of how a jury may think, right? So all of those things I think were taken into consideration. And
Yeah,
without a doubt that all of those things that I just mentioned played a role in helping their strategy or helping them see what should be emphasized or focused on more, or it was also allowed them to anticipate how a jury may perceive certain points. So yeah,
Yes, I tell the chat all the time. I said, you guys are the mirror jury. If you don't believe that people are
exactly.
coming in here and reading this chat about whatever trial we're covering, you'd be wrong. Because,
Yeah,
I know what people want explained, and we talk about it a lot about, why did Brian Albert ever come? Like some people like little things. Where are the socks? I still want to know about the socks.
I know. Me too.
I really want to know about the socks. Frankie's mom says I would love an Alessi word of the day calendar. Oh, there's a good fundraising opportunity.
Yeah, there you go.
Uh, Jazzy said, this is a great change of pace, loving it. We were all offended by Brennan calling your dad Mr. Alessi. I can only imagine how you must have felt. Oh, it was like he was doing it on purpose too. Because
You
the
know,
judge would say, Mr. Alessi, whatever. And then Brennan would say, and Mr. Alessi said, like, dude.
you know that whole thing with malapro. I have never really used the term before, so I'm probably not going to say it correctly. But malapropisms, or it's you use the wrong word at the wrong time, or you mispronounce words a certain way. I genuinely feel, and this is just my opinion, not tied to anybody else's opinion. I feel like he may have some sort of issue with that, like a genuine issue with that, with certain pronunciations of things. But there were certain times where he did say it right toward the end, and I don't know what that was about. So
Yes.
maybe he was doing it as almost a Judd Welcher, let me show you who's in charge by mispronouncing your name and not giving you the respect that you deserve, sort of situation. But it's just petty. I just find if that was really if he really was doing that as a way to diss my dad, I find that to be quite petty. And
Yeah.
it just speaks to the you his, your first line of defense should be the strength of your legal arguments, and how you comport yourself in court, and your legal strategy. And if that's not working, are you then going to stoop to the mispronunciation of somebody's name who's not that hard to pronounce? Is that what's happening? Sounds plausible.
Yeah, kind of, like people on the cesspool of Twitter resort to the ad hominem attacks when they can't win on the facts or the law or,
Like a
common
I
sense,
look at those
basically.
people like they unfortunately for them, all they're doing is making me look at them as less than human, because it's almost like a computer virus where they see woman on other side, see woman that may have strong presence. Let's queue up ugly, let's queue up manly, let's queue up all of these other types of attacks, and it's
Mhm.
just a blanket. It's like a blanket program that's just applied to women that fit that profile of putting themselves out there and having a strong presence, and having something important to say. That's what it seems to
Jealousy.
be.
It's jealousy,
Yeah,
it's pettiness, it's people hiding behind fake. There's one picture of me that they keep reposting that they've done something to. I don't know, doctored it, and I'm the crypt keeper. And they love people who actually pay money to come in here and insult me. Like they will put a super chat to insult me and like pay.
wow.
Like it's wild to me. It's wild. This isn't
At least you
TikTok.
get to
There's no
profit off of it.
filters. There, right. Thanks for your $2. There's no filter. This isn't TikTok where you can like gussy up your face. This is me. I'm here every single day. People know what I look like, but I don't know. They found a picture of me and they made it look not like me, and they claim that I hide behind. It's like I don't even want to give them air because then they breathe. I admire the bromance between your dad and Yannetti.
I love it.
Roasted
I just
pizza.
absolutely love it. Yep.
David Reese says Laura has the classic Southern Italian beauty. I'll allow it. The Alessinator says I adore you and your dad, Steely Dan,
Oh,
too.
thank you. Yes, Steely Dan all the way.
This person changed their name to emulate. Lady Zelda Kelly
Oh,
is
that's
here. She's
great.
awesome. I love that your dad predicted the time of the verdict on the 18th. Fellow Pisces
Yep.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
Music to My Soul says ultimately not even Karen Reed had money to sustain the case. The fact that these lawyers kept fighting for her without pay told me how much they believed in her. Yeah. And all of
Yeah.
you, so generous, donated over $1 million to her defense fund. And this was a real public outcry. People were outraged by this worldwide. Thank you, Mama She. Great show with two beautiful, intelligent ladies. Thank you so much. Susie Q. Seaport said Alessi was a game changer for the second trial. Unbelievable expert lawyer and took a lot of Yannetti and AJ AJ's plate, his passion is undeniable. Yeah. And I think we addressed this one. I started that early. What did Laura think of Hank? I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, or if we've said enough.
I mean, he did what he could with what he had. He went in, he had a mission. Who gave him that mission? We don't know, but we can guess. And he went in there and did the job that he was assigned to do to the best of his ability. And that job was not to find truth or justice, but I think it was something else. And I don't really think I think he went in with a by any means necessary, I'm going to try and achieve this outcome. And when he realized he had a judge that was going to support that with everything, it gave him a lot of leeway you to lawyer in ways that I don't think in other courtrooms you would ever even consider lawyering. So I just look at him as a guy that had a job. I don't look at him as a bad person. I don't look at him as evil. I look at him as it's almost like how you look at a hitman. The hitman is a hitman. He goes out and he does his job, and then he has a family, and he goes home and he sits down at the dinner table and, is a completely different person. I'm sure that that's the case with Hank. So that's what I thought of Hank.
Yeah, I thought he was out to get a conviction, not truth or justice. And I thought that, he may be protecting some very powerful people. And because there's no reason to hire an outside gun when you've got more than 50 attorneys in-house that are on a salary that could be trying this case. I called it the hot potato case in Norfolk County because nobody else wanted to touch it. They had to go out and get a guy who's a defense attorney, because really this case was in defense of some other people and not about finding the truth and justice for John O'Keefe. And it's very sad and shocking that in 2025, the world was watching and nobody cared, because they just kept doubling down with their shenanigans. Barbie said on Venmo, you did a shout out hoping I get the job I was interviewing for. And I did. Oh, that's amazing, Barbie. Congratulations.
Yay.
And she says, and Free Karen Reed was successful too. What a long, strange trip it's been indeed. Thank you. Thanks, Barbie. You guys are awesome. Patricia says, the great interview. Thank you, Melanie and Laura. AKA the crime scene spoke to me. Yeah, that was hilarious. Trooper Paul. So you did watch the first trial, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
I did.
Joan for the Venmo. Says I Venmo in an effort to help your salary for excellent snarky coverage. Best way? It is the best way because YouTube takes 30%. So listen, any way is a good way. And just your presence is also my present. Never expected, always appreciated. Yeah. So you were invested in the first trial.
Yeah.
Did you like encourage your dad to become involved because of your passion for it, or vice versa?
So, I mean, my dad already knew David prior to the first trial. And so I know my dad has already said this on another podcast, so I can reiterate it.
Right.
But, my dad was, hearing about the case through David and talking to him about it. And David and my dad's friendship had already started to blossom. And so I know that my dad was talking to him here and there about the case. And so I kind of had an investment in it because of David. And I knew David too. And so I just really was enmeshed in the fight for justice in this regard because David was a part of it. And yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts about being involved in this case or covering this case is the amazing people that I've met, like yourself, like David Yannetti, like Tanis Yannetti, his sister.
She's awesome. I love her. She's so fantastic. I was talking to her the other day. She's great.
Like Kelly Reed, like people that I never would have known. Kelly Reed is now a very, one of my besties. Like all of the good people have come together for a cause, and I think we'll be like friends for life. And I love that so much for us.
Yes, me too. That's what that I think that was a side purpose of this trial, is to bring really good people together, and individually, collectively, it's very apparent that is the outcome in so many ways, and the things that you just said, case in point.
Yeah, I love it. Goodmans are here. They gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. And Ariane says the attitude we're always told to have equals Alessi. Love that. Love that. Well, I don't want to keep you here too long because I want to be respectful of your time. And we talked about a time limit. So is there anything that you would like to say in closing, or if you would like to how people can contact you, if they would like to have you train them, if that's something that you're willing to share, or follow you, and I would love to continue our conversation because I think we have so much
Oh
more
yeah,
to talk about.
I would absolutely love to continue having good conversations with you. This is it's great to finally be able to have one with you after all of this time.
I
I feel like
know.
when did we? I think we spoke to each other in March. I think that was
Yeah,
when I reached out to you via email. So March, April, May, June. It's like 3 months later. It's finally happened.
I know.
Um, I mean, things that I want to say. I feel that it's already been said, but it cannot be said enough.
Hmm.
Just how grateful I am for the support from everybody that's been watching this trial for my dad. Because when he initially entered the public eye, I was kind of nervous because I didn't know how he would be received. I just had no idea what was to come, and I feel everybody welcomed him clearly with open arms. He's got a whole fan base now, which is just so wild for me to think about. It's like my dad has a fan club. Okay, I guess it's been a long time coming in some ways because he is very much a character. But it really meant a lot to me and my family because we understood when my dad took the case that we were going to be in the public eye also in some capacity. My mom and sister were less involved. I'm more of the vocal one, but
Hmm.
they were concerned too, about how, their safety, because this is a serious matter with
Yeah.
a lot of people involved that have a lot to lose, and you just never know. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
just to feel the support of this community has been insane. And it's just the power of all of you together is you guys can make anything happen. And as my dad has said, I think the whole energy that you guys created with your support and just constant well wishes and putting positive vibes out there. I'm a weird woo woo person. I believe in
Me too.
energy. I believe in all of those things, and thoughts become things, and you put those things forth into the universe. Like, they can become true if you do it the right way. And I just hope that people continue using that in whatever capacity that they see fit. Because this, like you were saying, Melanie, I think it's such a great idea for your podcast to take on something along the lines of an Innocence Project podcast. Because these things that happened in this trial, maybe they didn't happen in the same way in other instances, but they happen every day in our judicial system. Though it's the greatest justice system in the world, there are still flaws. And the only way that you can really bring about the change that is needed is to use your voice in, as my dad would say, in a positive, aggressive, and peaceful way. But nonetheless, I think there's a fire that we've created that needs to continue to be kindled, and it needs to be kindled by people like you, Melanie, and those of you that really played a role in this case, which is all of you. Yeah. So don't ever underestimate the power of your energy and your voice. Don't ever, because even though there are a lot of people out there that are, have thousands of people that are watching them at a time, it's every single voice matters, as cliche as that sounds, not just in the sense of how many people are watching you or listening to you, but thoughts become things. That's one of my favorite sayings. And
Hmm.
whatever you put out there is going to come back. So keep putting it
Right.
out there.
That's right. It's like manifesting and just when you're not looking for something, that's when it happens. I mean, there's so many things we talk about
Hmm.
relationships and, dynamics and, power and, like women, like you were saying earlier, like strong women always get attacked. Why is that? Why is it that the strong women get attacked, but men act that way every day in business and they're just successful. But when a woman does that, she's a bitch or she's aggressive instead of being assertive. It's a very and it hasn't changed much since the 90s when I became a lawyer. In the 90s, it was sort of like I'd walk into the courtroom in a suit with shoulder pads, because that's the way we did it back then in the 90s,
I know.
double
Yep.
breasted, pencil skirt, shoulder pads out to here. And it was always an old boys club. It still is in a lot of respects, courtrooms
Hmm.
are. And, it's the men, the boys club. And I would walk into the courtroom and they could say, oh, honey, you could set up over there. Like I was the court reporter because I was a woman. And it was, all that aside, you got to push through that and just like not just keep on keeping on, really is the best
Yes.
advice to give anybody. And I think that we've got a lot, you and I together, that we could teach the younger generations. We were talking about this backstage, like women, like keeping your power and
Yeah.
and learning relationship dynamics and how learning the red flags in relationships and things that I was never taught as a young girl. Nobody ever taught us about that. what to look
Yeah.
for, signs of domestic violence, signs of abuse, signs, speak up.
Yes. Yes. And because I feel in a lot of situations like that, there is people that are in situations that are abusive in relationships. There is a lot of shame. How did I allow myself to get into this situation? How did I let it get this far? How did I not see this coming? And those are things that deter you from
Yep.
using your voice, and it does take a lot of strength to put aside those feelings and put aside those feelings of shame in order to, course correct. But you have to remember that people that are people that are listening to, what has happened to you, that is not their response. I feel like a lot of the times we project our own shame and our own feelings onto how other people are going to perceive us, if we're finally deciding that we want to say something, which, there's never the wrong time if you're in a situation like that to finally say something and have something be done about it.
Right.
It's making sure that that people are not thinking in the same way that you are, especially when you're in a situation that is clouding you psychologically like that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's really easier said than done, but it's almost like a leap of faith that you have to take, and that's the really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So
We have so much to say. So much to say. Cruelty-free
yes,
chapstick said, I cried tears of laughter alongside you and Better O, falling off your chairs in hysterics. It was so natural and a
I
feeling
gotta
to
find those
witness.
clips because I kept hearing about them and I didn't see them.
We did some, I
Oh,
went off on a Monty Python rant one day, like, tis only a flesh wound. I think maybe it was when your father was like assassinating Shannon Burgess with
it
his,
was. I know it was a Shannon Burgess
and
related.
I was
Thank
like,
God.
he's out there like waiting for the guy to come out of it with the shrubbery and the sword. I don't know how into Monty Python you are, but that was like a Monty Python. I don't even remember which Monty Python it was, but there was like a famous like sword fighting scene between knights, and one was like chopping off the guy's arm and chopping off his other arm, and he's like, okay, are you done? And he's like, no, 'tis only a flesh wound, I'll keep
Flesh wound,
coming.
yeah.
And then it's hilarious, but it was funny. Woohoo to you too. Thanks, Woohoo Worldwide. What are y'all's rising sign? I have no idea what my rising sign is. I don't even know what that
Libra.
is or how to
Mine's
find it.
Libra. You get that time passages app yet.
All right.
It is the best. I'm not sponsored by any of the products that I promote. It's just because I love them.
Right.
Time passages blows CoStar away. CoStar is kind of like I find it to be really hit or miss. It does the daily horoscope stuff. It kind of has a social networking component to it. But time passages, let me tell you, you put in your information for that, it gives you the whole breakdown of where the planets were at the time you were born and all of those aspects I was talking to you about. You will read it and
Mm-hmm.
you will say, holy smokes, this is
Wow.
so accurate into like my innermost workings of my minds. But anyway, if you download that
I'm
up,
gonna do
it
it.
will give you all of that stuff.
I'll do it today. Time passed. ShamWow is here from Canada again with the super chat. Laura talks fast, like a typical young woman, but every word that comes out of her mouth is so intelligent. Uh, and then I got another one here. Calico 26. How do you feel about the Proctor victim tour? I don't really. Do we need to address that?
Oh man, I mean, it's just, the damage has already been done. There's really no rehabilitating of his image, in my opinion. I think it is more for him to feel better about himself and his family to feel better about themselves than it is going to do really any of the uh bring about the things that they want to bring about, whatever those are.
Carmen knows your address, as I like to say, and some people, Carmen may be visiting very, very, very soon. Thank you so much for coming to spend some time with us. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
having me.
you.
I was so thrilled when you asked me to do this because I said to Jimmy, it's like you and him are like the two people that I really was hoping to be able to talk
Oh,
to and have a conversation with everybody, and it was fantastic. I loved
well,
it. We definitely have to do it again.
we have more
Have a
work to
series of
do.
sorts going.
We got a
Yes,
platform here, so let's use it to do some good, is what I say.
I agree completely.
Right? Let's do it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
I
having me.
love you. If you
Thank
want
you
to hang out
everybody for all
backstage,
the
I'll just
love.
say goodbye and we can chat. Unless you have to run, then run.
I do have to run. I don't even know
Okay.
what time it is, but
It's
I do know I have to head in.
3:45. You good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I'll
have
talk
to
to you
head
later.
into
We'll talk
work
later.
shortly. Yes, yes, please.
Thank you so much. We love
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Wasn't that fun? That was so fun. I have a bad mic today, so it's really super annoying to me that I'm probably not sounding as good as I normally do with my regular mic, but amazing, amazing, amazing. Wasn't that fun? I really wanted to hear from her because I knew from talking to her in the brief time that we've known each other how amazing a person she is, and I knew that you might be interested to talk to her as well. Couple things I want to talk to you guys about is the thing that I want to do next. I mean, things are breaking on Karen Read every single day, and so who knows? We're going to talk about that too. But here's something that I want to get into, and that is Brian Walsh. The Brian Walsh trial is coming up in October. I have recently been going over some of the motions. That's why I didn't come on yesterday, because I was prepping for this Brian Walsh thing that I want to do. Brian Walsh, for those of you who live in the Massachusetts area, and maybe even some of you who don't, Brian Walsh's wife, Anna Walsh, went missing I think it was New Year's Day, 2023. So it was actually almost 1 year after the murder of John O'Keefe is the murder of Anna Walsh. Anna Walsh's body has never been found. Brian Walsh is in custody right now. He's facing first-degree murder charges. And what is interesting about Brian Walsh's case is that Proctor, Buchanan, Fanning, and many of the same players are involved in the Brian Walsh case. Yes, his Google searches are extremely damning. They are. Let me tell you something, Jenny. There's a motion right now to dismiss or to suppress everything that was found on his devices and all the fruits of the poisonous tree resulting therefrom, because maybe or maybe not, Proctor lied on the search warrant applications. Proctor also lied on the search warrant applications for Karen Read, as you may remember, when he told the judge that Karen Read's car was seized from Dighton at 5:30. Do you remember? We went over those search warrants. And so now that Proctor has been fired, it is now coming to light that Proctor may have lied on the search warrant applications to seize and search the devices of Brian Walsh. They seized his cell phone and then the cell phones, the iPads of his children. The argument is that because he lied about probable cause on the search warrants, everything resulting therefrom should be suppressed. I have all the papers that I want to go over with you. There was a hearing. There was a 2-day hearing that was done that I have. We want to look at the testimony of Buchanan and Fanning and another officer. It has not been decided yet, but it seems that the tentacles of Proctor go deep. And the attorney representing Brian Walsh is an attorney, very highly regarded attorney. We watched him together when he tried the case of Penny McGee. His name is Larry Tipton. He's an amazing attorney. He's also a public defender, and he defended Penny McGee, and that was a bench trial in front of Judge Cannoni, and Judge Cannoni acquitted Penny McGee, remember? Larry Tipton is the attorney. He's top-notch, and he's representing Brian Walsh. So we're going to see what happens, and I want to cover it with you guys, and Yuri Buchanan, yeah, he testified. Thank you, Kelly Reed, for this breaking story out of the Hollywood Reporter regarding Karen Read. Let's take a look at this. Let me know that you guys are interested in covering this, Brian Walsh, and we can maybe do it later today or tomorrow. Karen Read inks a deal to develop screen adaptation of murder case. Looky, looky. Breaking news in the Hollywood Reporter. Let me hang on one second while I pull this up so I can read it. Killers of the Flower Moon producer LBI Entertainment is behind a scripted project, and CAA is repping rights for Read, who was acquitted of second-degree murder in the death of her police officer boyfriend. Well, that's interesting. And here we were casting a fake movie, and now we find out that it's a real scripted project. Is it a series? Is it a movie? Let's move on. A scripted adaptation of the Karen Read murder case, which ended in a recent acquittal, is in the works. LBI Productions is partnering with Reed and her lead defense attorney, Alan Jackson, to develop a scripted project chronicling the case that ignited national media attention. The project promises details of the Reed story not yet disclosed to the public, the producers said. CAA is representing the film and TV rights. Woot woot. On June 18th, the jury found Karen Reed not guilty of second-degree murder and manslaughter charges Wednesday in the 2022 death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. The same jury also found her guilty of a lesser charge of drunken driving after deliberating for at least 22 hours since June 13th. The first Karen Reed trial ended in a mistrial. Reed's lawyers during the trials asserted she was framed by police after dropping John O'Keefe off at a party at the home of a fellow officer. Prosecutors argued that the 45-year-old Reed hit O'Keefe, 46, with her SUV before driving away, but the defense maintained that he was killed inside the home and later dragged outside. I've lived in this town with John. I saw what it takes for a small group of powerful people to be above the law. I struggled for over 3 years to overcome this power and corruption, eliciting help from tens of private investigators, multiple attorneys, and eventually the federal government. It was ultimately a groundswell of local residents and a grassroots campaign that afforded me the resources I needed to fight back, Reed said in a statement on Friday about her successful defense during 2 trials. With exclusive access to both Reed and Jackson, the upcoming project is expected to look behind the prosecution, the defense's counter-investigation, and the cultural debate that surrounded the case. Ahead of the second trial for Reed, there were dueling TV docuseries from Investigation Discovery, Netflix, and others to explore whether Reed reversed her SUV over boyfriend O'Keefe or was framed to protect fellow Boston police officers involved in his death. This isn't just a legal thriller. It's about what happens when a single voice refuses to be silenced. Karen's case reflects the complicated moment in time in which we live. We will have an opportunity to show layers that have never been brought to light, and we are committed to telling the story with urgency, nuance, and care, LBI production head Julie Yorn added in another statement. This is in the Hollywood Reporter. Somebody asked, where is this? Alex Kohner of Yorn Levine handled negotiations for Reed and Jackson. Jared Levine of Yorn Levine acted for LBI Productions. LBI Entertainment has production credits that include Killers of the Flower Moon and Hell or High Water. Plans are also underway for a book project with the participation of Reed and Jackson. The publishing rights are being shopped by literary agent Luke Janklow of Janklow and Nesbitt. Well, there you have it. I said this from the beginning, and maybe that was why Alan and Karen were being quiet, is because they may have a first look deal with some production companies and or publishers, and it appears that I was right. So there we go. How about that? I hope she not only ends up owning Massachusetts, but also has makes lots of money off whatever book deals. And also the attorneys will get paid, right? Because they all worked for free. So there's that. There's that. And that's why we haven't heard much from them. And good. Praise be. Praise be, everyone. It'll be a great movie, whatever it is. It's going to be great. Killers of the Flower Moon. Now I feel like I want to go watch that. And we did our fake casting. We had our fake casting. Thank you, Lauren Dunleavy. NFA Kai says, love you, Mel. Great to hear from the underbelly of the defense team. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. So happy. Cruelty-free chapstick. My heart felt for you when the verdict came through and freed Karen. Again, you and Bettero got me through in the feels. We cried together in solidarity. I know. Even just thinking about it, still I get choked up. I'm just going to put a little push out there to let me play myself in the movie. Like, could I be a character? Even like a supporting role? I'll be an extra. Whatever it takes. See, there's Cusco, right? I see a cameo of Melanie Little playing the law tube attorney who followed the case where there are 100,000 subscribers. It wasn't 100,000 when I started covering this case. I'll tell you that much. It's a lot less than that. Karen Reed says Melanie Little's awesomeness and left swipe in StreamYard. That's what it is, Ashley. The McAlberts are trying to get ahead of the story. I heard they have a deal with Netflix. I heard the McCabe's and the Alberts and perhaps Mafia Masshole and some other people. But the way this story ended and the way that they've been out there attacking jurors and a lot of other people, I don't know if if that Netflix deal is going to fall through for them. I don't know. But Catherine says Killers of the Flower Moon is a very good movie. Brandy K says she's watching the first trial, and wow, yeah, so much stuff. So many of the supporting characters were not brought forth in trial number 2. Anybody who did not watch trial 1, I encourage you to go watch it, because you did not get to hear from all of the other people that were in the house. You didn't get to hear from Julie Albert and her story about dropping off the donuts as a family ritual for Bride's birthday the next day, and Chris Albert and Brian Higgins and Brian Albert and Proctor himself and all of these other characters in the background. Thank you, Mary, for your very generous $50 super sticker. You're amazing. Thank you so very much. There's a lot of stuff in the works, but this one that was announced today, I think this is the first time that this one has been announced. This is a first look deal with Karen and Alan for a book, and for it says a scripted project, but so your actors are going to play. It's not going to be a documentary, and maybe it's going to be a feature film and TV rights. It says, so we'll see. I can't wait to see what it brings, and you can bet that there's going to be a lot of stuff in that we don't know about. So I think that Turtle Boy, Aiden Carney, has his own deal with a different company, so it's not the same project. It's a different project. Thank you, Jessica, for tuning in. Thanking me for the chat with Laura today. 2 bright spots on some cloudy days. I know. When is the sun going to come out? Is the sun ever going to come out? Martin Scorsese produced and directed it. Oh, really, Sarah B. Creative? Hang on a second. Hang on. Oh my, really? Would it be so prophetic of me to have said that this is like a Scorsese film back when I said that? Because I did say it. We got to find that clip. If Scorsese, this is like a Scorsese film, right? Killers of the Flower Moon. Look at you, girl. Look at you. It's the same company that did Killers of the Flower Moon. Okay, Killers of the Flower Moon was a 2023 film directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Scorsese, and some others, Eric Roth, and then book writer. Produced by, hold on. I'm going to go IMDb all of these people because it tells me exactly who repped them. Jorn Levine, LBI Entertainment. Wouldn't that be crazy if it was a Scorsese film? And it's a film with Leo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone, Jesse Plemons, John Lithgow, all-star cast, Brendan Fraser. Yeah, so you can perhaps say that it could be something big. Would be epic, right? Yes, Compelling Pictures, I think, is who Scorsese works with. LBI. I've been saying he has to direct this. I mean, when I thought there were bigger things to come, you guys remember that I did say that, right? That it could be like, it's like this is a Scorsese. We were thinking Tarantino, and then I said, no, Scorsese. Wow. And don't put it out there that that's really true, because we don't know that yet. LBI Entertainment. Let me just see if there's anything that they have as current projects. Hold on. Hold, please. See if it's up on IMDb now. Anybody familiar with IMDb and IMDb Pro? So something ironic happened, and I put it up on my Instagram. There's this thing, if you're an actor on IMDb Pro, that gives you like a rating. It's called a star meter, and the lower your star meter, like the more popular you are, or the more people are clicking on your IMDb page. And like, I don't know, people say casting directors don't use it, but my star meter on IMDb has never been lower than it is right now, which is good. Like golf, you want the low score. And it's funny because I haven't booked any acting jobs since I started doing my YouTube channel. So isn't it ironic, don't you think? LBI, let's Google them. Let's IMDb them. LBI Entertainment Productions. Okay. Hell or High Water, that's from 2016. The Other Woman, that was Cameron Diaz, Leslie Mann. They have a lot to do with Leo DiCaprio. This could be very interesting, my friends. Very, very interesting. And so we'll stay tuned to that. Thanks, Kelly Reed, for sending that to me, because I've been on the air all day. I haven't been able to even look at the trades, as they say. The trades. You guys, if you're just tuning in now and you didn't see Laura Alessi's conversation with me, I thought it was really fun. Did you guys think it was fun? Something's up with my lighting. I look orange. Thank you for pointing that out, Sarah. Be creative. You're amazing. And Mon says, I'm all in on Innocence projects. I sent you an email about a week ago. I know you're busy. I was wondering if you remember Pisces. I don't remember who particularly it was, but if you just shoot me another email. Somebody told me about a case named Crossley Green in Florida that I wanted to look at. I think it's Crossley Green, right? Oh, Chrissy says so smart and classy, just like her dad. Great interview. Thank you. These are my interviews more like conversations than interviews. Scorsese, yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. The Yannetti Turtle Boy and Microdots are on the same project. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. Thank you, Zay. Will you be streaming Turtle Boy's trial? They're out to get him. Yes, his trial's at least a year away, as I heard him say last night somewhere. But we cover all his hearings. I have an entire Turtle Boy playlist. So if you're not familiar with what's going on in his case, the playlist is called Commonwealth versus Aidan Carney. And we've covered most of the filings and most of the Better letters. I think all the Better letters, and also any hearings that we could cover that were streamed. So check that out, Jay Coop. But his trial is not set to take place for probably, he says, a year or so. Okay. All right. So give me some ideas in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Oh, here's something very interesting. Silver Spike says, how about an interview and discussion on empaths with Alanis Morissette? Oh, if anybody knows Alanis Morissette and can get, her to call me, I would love to talk to Alanis Morissette. She's part of the soundtrack of my life. Something else very, very interesting. Hold on, let me find it for you, because I'm going to drop the link in the chat, because I love this interview so much that I want you to go give it a watch. I have been kind of obsessed with like Armie Hammer and what happened to Armie Hammer and like the fallout from the whole Armie Hammer thing. And if you know, you know. If you don't, you probably don't want to know. But Annie Elise did an interview with his ex-wife that was amazing. Why can't I find it right now? Hold on. And I suggest that you go watch it. Wait, here it is. She did an interview with Elizabeth Chambers, who's the ex-wife of Armie Hammer, about toxic relationships. And, this is something that Laura and I were talking about backstage. I'm going to drop the link in the chat, because, I feel like it's not something that girls and boys are taught in school, about how to see the red flags of the toxic relationships and how to get out of them and such like that. Let me pin it in the chat. So it's a riveting interview that Annie Elise did with her, and like good on her for like landing this interview number one, and for talking about the tough topics that don't necessarily have to do with true crime. And now I can't get back to my own chat to pin that comment that I just put in there. So hang on, because when I try and pin it, it just takes me to the interview, which is, one of the problems with my fingers. So let me see if I can find it on the actual, and I'll drop it also in the video description. So there's that for you guys to watch. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Okay, here, I'm going to pin that in the chat. I found it very, very, very interesting. And I've also been talking to Annie Elise behind the scenes, and she is fascinating, and I love her. We're hopefully going to do something together soon. Crossley Green, right? Crossley Green. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Chloe Albus Revenge says, supposedly the coffin is writing a book. I see new doorstops and litter box liners. Every one of us in the, oh, really? I had no idea. I wouldn't even want to give that person any air. Eliza Sherman Cleveland says, Hank's crash test paint. Thank you, Eliza, A-L-I-Z-A. Sherman Cleveland. Tess Mack, thank you for thanking me for everything that I do. Okay, so we need to get started on Brian Walsh. That is one of the things that we need to get started. And also, please make sure that you are subscribed, because YouTube is acting wonky lately, and they sometimes unsubscribe people. So please make sure you're subscribed. Please make sure you have your notifications set to all. And then also please make sure that you have notifications set on your phone so that you'll know when I go live and that you won't miss a thing. Please put your DNA on the like button, because I can promise you that the MSP and Canton PD won't get a hold of it. And even if they did, they wouldn't even know what to do with it. So you're safe. It's all safe. Everything's going to be fine. Derek Carney says Fiona Apple has a new song about women who can't afford court and how it ruins families. She'd be a great interview too. Listen, if anybody's got any lines to Fiona Apple and Alanis Morissette, by all means, I would love it. Thanks, Derek. No, I don't know. I don't have a date for the 100K unboxing yet. I don't know. Thanks, Miss Jessica. Let me think about that. That's another thing that we got to put on the docket. Discworld Edge Witch says, I'm writing a PhD dissertation on DV in kink BDSM dynamics. So if you want an expert on to talk about Army from that lens, I volunteer as tribute. Oh my God, it's like the Hunger Games over here. That's really interesting. Shoot me an email with your contact information. We'll see. We'll see. All right, you guys. Hopefully we're going to come back later or tomorrow to talk about the Brian Walsh stuff, because I want to get started on it before. Oh, thank you, Ms. Holmes. Says one of your best lives ever. Before time gets away and something else comes up and then we forget to cover it. So let's do that. And also seeing Yuri Buchanan on the stand again, and also Fanning on the stand again, and just knowing that Michael Proctor's lying on search warrant applications could perhaps get an acquittal for Brian Walsh is frightening, disturbing, and so freaking scary. I have to pull up. I also have the search warrants on that, so I got to find it. Oh, can you do an interview with Victoria George and Paula? They're both twin moms. Victoria George and I were speaking behind the scenes, and she has decided to take a step back from speaking publicly. She was very, very excited about it. And then I think we're waiting for all this news to break with the Karen Reed, Alan Jackson deals that are coming out. And so I would love to do that too, if they're willing. Anybody can reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. What astrology app did Laura say? Oh, she said it's called Time Passages. Time Passages, Mama She. Take a look. FKR 2024, Melly should be in the Karen Reed story movie. You're so humble about your own experiences with acting and productions. I'd love you to talk about all that you've done. One of the many reasons I love and respect you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very sweet. You are very, very sweet. All right, you guys. Oh, yeah, Elizabeth Chambers has a show too, right? Toxic. That is good. She's a strong woman. Yeah. And also, as I've said many, many times before, Monica Lewinsky has a new podcast. That's amazing. And I've watched a couple of her interviews, and she's a great interviewer, and I would love to interview her. So if anybody's got a line to Monica Lewinsky, I've been Team Monica since the 90s, and I know what she went through, and it's wild. Brad Pitt also did an interview that came across my feed yesterday on, I don't even know the name of his podcast, Dane Cook. I don't know what the name of his podcast is, but it was like an hour and a half. Alan was on TMZ? No, I'll have to look for that. I can't play TMZ on my show because they strike creators who play their show. What is the name of Dane Cook's podcast? He did an interview with Brad Pitt. I don't know who his co-host is on that show, but did anybody else watch that interview with Brad Pitt? Love to know your thoughts on it, because I did watch it. He made some new movie about car racing or something. And I have a good story about Brad Pitt that I'll tell you some other time. I'm watching the chat. Nobody's really saying that they watched it. No, I don't know if AJ was on TMZ. I'm going to go look. All right, you guys, until I see you again, thank you to the moderators for keeping it classy today. I hope that the trolls, Dax Shepard did one. Yeah, that's the one. Wait, who did I say? Dane Cook? I'm sorry. It's Dax Shepard. Thank you, Miss Jessica. I knew I was maybe wrong about that. He's the one married to Kristen Bell, right? Okay, got it. All right, stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. Thank you to the moderators. You are amazing. Oh, thank you. I forgot to mention that I DJ mixed the Karen Reed playlist. Thank you, Derek. I don't, is it on your YouTube channel? Send everybody over there. Everybody follow Laura Alessi on Twitter. And if there's any other contact information, I will put it in the show notes, this video. All right, stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. I know you can do it. I know you can. You guys are amazing. And if I don't see you soon, I'm going to miss you with all of my heart. And if I don't see you soon, I'm going to die, which is amazing also because, wait a second. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second to get back on IMDb. All right. Godfather was Francis Ford Coppola. Okay. Never mind. Because that's funny because I always quote that scene, Clemenza's meatball scenes. Okay, guys, I'll see you really soon. Really, really, really soon. Set your notifications because you won't want to miss it. Share the stream out. Do all the things that YouTube likes. And I'm going to see you very, very soon. Peace. We freed Karen Reed. Now we got to free some other people. Okay?